Hello, everyone, teachers and classmates. Sorry. Today I'm going to present the last concepts that we already saw in our class, and I'm going to start. Okay. So the first concept that I'm going to explain is diglossia, and well, this concept refers to a situation in which two languages or two varieties of the same language are used under different conditions within a community, and this is often used by the same speakers. This concept has some specific characteristics. For example, like in these two varieties exist the high variety and the low variety. And the high variety refers to the one that is used in more formal or in more complex situations. Okay, and the low variety is the one that speakers use in their daily life in normal conversations. And well, in the text, they also mentioned that these both varieties complement each other. An example of this phenomenon is the are the communities that for example, just a specific example is the New York City, in where in that city lives the native citizens, the people who speak English, and the Hispanic people that speak Spanish in their daily day conversation because it is their first language or their native language, but they also use English because is the it is considered the high priority, I think, because English is well, no, I think it's the variety that is most used in complex or informal situations. Okay, now I'm going to talk about code switching. And code switching is the mixing of words, phrases, and sentences from two distinct grammatical subsystems across sentence boundaries within the same speech event. Okay, and well, some authors states that code switching occurs on the sentential level, unlike code mixing, which operates within the use of a word of two and does not alternate whole sentence. And this refers to people who use these, like who use code switching, just switch uh, between these two languages, but just change one word or two. For example, when we say in Spanish, like vamos a vamos a la party, okay? Vamos a la party o me me gusta. Well, you understand the concept, right? Vamos a la party. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about code mixing. And well, code mixing is other phenomenon closely related to code switching. Sometimes people could confuse about these two terminologies because they are so similar, but yes, just they are just so similar. And this usually occurs when the speakers use both languages together and switch between these two languages to extent that they change from one tone to the other in the course on a single utterance. And code mixing can involve various levels of language, such as phonology, morphology, structures, and lexical items. And this refers when they could use, for example, they are talking in Spanish, but suddenly they change to English and they finish the whole sentence or their whole idea in that language. There here is not only change one language, it's like the whole sentence. Well, yes, like the whole sentence and also the whole structure. They talk in the structure that is required in each language. And well, now I'm going to talk about my experience. And I think I I experiment diglossia when I entered to university at the faculty because it's a community and we already know that in that specific community, most of the people speak at least one more language, like is English or another one. And I think that the other language or second language that in our case will be English is the low variety in that case because we only use that variety in language classrooms, well, in our classrooms, when we talk with our teachers, or sometimes when we are talking with our friends in order just to practice the language or to practice our skills, just for that. And the high variety would be our native language, that is Spanish, because inside classrooms we talk English or we talk our second language, but outside classrooms we speak Spanish. And well, we do that. So I think that is like Lucia in my case. And other example of that I've lived or I experienced, it's when I meet with people that speak indigenous language, that they were speaking in Spanish, but they suddenly changed to Nahuatl. And well, no, they don't speak Nahuatl to me, right? Because I don't speak Nahuatl, but they could change, and I think that was wrong, but sorry. Let's gonna change with the next one. That it is code switching, and I think that I used to do a lot of code switching when I was a beginner in English language, but I don't do it anymore because when I was learning English, I was, for example, I was just trying to speak in English, but when I didn't remember a word, I changed to Spanish and say that word in Spanish. But after say that word, I come back to English and I continue my sentence. That when as I already read, that is very common in beginners. And yes, I just confirmed that information because I used to do it. Now I don't do it anymore, but I notice that my students do it because, for example, they are talking well, they are talking to me in English, but no, they are talking to me in Spanish, but they know a word in English, so they use that word in the conversation and then just speak again in Spanish. It's funny, but I like it when they do that because I mean they are using their knowledge of their language. And well, yes, I like that. Now I'm going to talk about code switching, not code mixing, sorry, code mixing. And that is something one time something interesting happened to me because uh, I was talking with my sister and I just was talking in Spanish with her. It was just a normal conversation, but I don't know what happened to me. But then I just changed to English. Well, not to English, but I used the English structure in Spanish. I remember I saying something like, estaba viendo el rojo carro, and just continue talking in Spanish like I normally do. And just few seconds later, I just realized what I said, and I just turned back to my sisters and I said, "What did and I told her, "What did I said?" And she was like, "I don't know, just be weirder." And I just started laughing, and she continues saw me like, "What happened to you?" And I just explained her in that moment that I just switched the structures. And well, for her it wasn't funny, but for me it was more than I think that more than funny was that I realized that at that point, well, yes, at that point, I already had I already have certain level of proficiency in English language because I was able to switch between these two languages unconsciously. And at that moment, I was really happy and excited for that. Now, well, that was something happened to me. But now that I'm teacher and I'm in front of a group, I realize, well, I'm doing my professional practices this period, and I had a native speaker of English. And I noticed that he used to do a lot of code mixing with me. I don't know if he do this with his other teachers, but with me, he does. Why? Because sometimes I was just explaining the topic. I was just talking with the students, and he understand me all right. But sometimes I just turn or I just switch to Spanish for a better understanding, and he continues talking to me in English, and that was right. That was okay. But sometimes when when he wanted to explain their classmates what about what were we talking about, he was talking in Spanish, but then they didn't know how to explain that topic. O sea, yes, he didn't know how to explain to their classmates the whole conversation. So again, he switched to English, and that was funny because he was trying to explain their classmate, but to a certain point he couldn't. So in that moment I had to. For example, Brian estaba, yo decía como, Brian, lo que Brian quiso decir es, and I continue explaining the conversation in Spanish. Or well, then I was he was speaking to me in English. Sorry, he was speaking to me in Spanish, but it's not his native language. So when he couldn't explain it anymore, he turns to English, and I couldn't understand, of course. But I noticed that he does this a lot, and again, that was something great to see. And well, now I'm going to talk about the implications of these concepts. And I'm going to start with diglossia. And well, the cognitive implication that I found in diglossia is that it could develop metalinguistic awareness by exposing students to context-specific language use. And sorry, and it also requires a significant cognitive effort to learn and apply different varieties appropriately. Okay, then it's about cognitive, about teaching. It's about well, teachers may necessitate additional resources to teach both varieties effectively. With this, I refer that if we want to teach, well, if we want to teach, I mean, not to teach like glossia, but in order to explain our students how those varieties are used or what is the correct form of these varieties, we need to have or we need to find more resources to do this in an effective way. And about talking about the social implications is that students can stigmatize native dialects and see them as low varieties. And I think this is something that that already, yes, this is something that already happened because um, when we well not when we meet a person that speak indigenous language, they don't use it in their in academic context or informal context. Here in Mexico, they use Spanish, and Spanish is like the high variety for them, and their native language, their first language is the low variety. And talking about the linguistic implication, well, I think it helps students to develop a registered awareness, improving language appropriacy in different situations. Okay, Now, with code mixing, the cognitive implication is that it could foster students to use their whole linguistic repertoire. As my example that I give you, when my students know a specific word in English, they use it in Spanish, and I think it's funny. That is what I refer here. And talking about teaching implication is that code mixing could facilitate explanation of complex topics or instructions in a student's native language. I think that if teachers find the way to balance this concept, it could be a good strategy to teach languages. So yes, talking about social implications, I think it reinforces cultural identity and community among bilingual and multilingual students. And linguistic implication, I think that it promotes bilingual communication skills for real world context. Again, as we already know, bilingual people use the whole linguistic repertoire in real world situations. And well, about code switching, okay, sorry, I made a mistake. It was the first, the middle one was code switching, and the last one is code mixing. Sorry. Well, talking about cognitive implication of code mixing again, I think it promotes comfort and confidence in language used by allowing mixed language expressions. And with this, I refer with my students that I have during this period. He was, I think, he feel he felt comfortable with me to do this, to being able to change between these two languages for a better way to explain himself. The teaching, I think it provides a strategy to obtain significant learning. And again, I think if teachers find a balance to use these concepts or these tools, will be a very good and helpful strategy for language teaching and also learning. And talking about social implication of code mixing, I think again it reflects real world multilingual interaction and helping students feel more connected to their linguistic identity. And the linguistic implications, I think it reflects the authentic bilingual or multilingual usage preparing students for diverse communication contexts. And well, that will be all. And as you can see, I am I really like the idea to use this kind of tools, this kind of strategies to improve the way teachers teach languages. And if we find a way to balance the native language, sorry, and the second language, would be awesome, and it could facilitate the teaching learning process for both sides, for teachers and for learners. So I think for us as a teachers, we should consider it